Hi, Scott Seaton here, music director of your North State Symphony. And today I am interviewing one of our three finalists for the North State Symphony Composition Competition as part of our so-called Beethoven Idol, where in our 20th season, our three finalists will have their pieces rehearsed, vying for the finalist spot, which will be presented alongside Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. And with me today, I have all the way from Sydney, Australia, Wesley Stormer. Wesley, how you doing?
I'm good, thanks, Scott. Yeah, going well. Going well.
Yep. How is this whole isolation situation treating you?
Uh yeah, it's amazing, I think, what we can get used to as humans. I think it's quite, the first week or two, I think people obviously naturally were, sort of maybe panicking a little bit and a bit stressed. I think there's still a lot of stress and panic going on, but I think after a while people have really, I guess, adapted to this kind of way of living, which is quite interesting. But yeah, I'm going okay. I'm going all right. Just keep on trying to be productive and all that and all those good things.
Oh, absolutely. And you know, it's a new time to rediscover oneself and create new outlets of creativity and productivity. I know for me, it's been a time where just this cleansing and a reappreciation for everything that I did have in my life. Of course, mostly or most importantly, getting in front of people and creating something is something I
Mhm.
deeply miss. And no matter how much innovation and cool things we can create in an online world, nothing will ever replace making music in person with people. So I can't wait to
Yeah.
get back to that. But on the
Definitely.
positive side, some of the things that are happening now as a result of all these minds from all over the world coming together, some great things and some great exchanges of ideas are happening, and
Yeah.
some of this stuff will definitely spill over into a post COVID-19 era. And that's also exciting because I feel like we're going to be more connected in meaningful ways. Um,
Definitely.
oh,
Definitely.
yeah.
Yeah.
So the whole point of this is for us to get to know you a little bit as we before our audiences hear a little bit of your piece in the coming season. And to start out, why don't you just give us a synopsis of how you got to where you are as a composer. You can talk about how you started in music, maybe your
Yeah.
first instrument, and if you keep up with that instrument now, and what really drew you to this vast field of composition.
Oh, it is vast, isn't it? It's never ending, which is scary and exciting. I think the more you write, the more you listen to other music, you sort of realize just sort of what you're dealing with. You have so much to learn and so much to explore. Yeah, so where to begin? Well, yeah, I started learning the clarinet in early primary school. I guess I was might have been age 9 or 10. Then picked up the saxophone later, and then picked up the flute eventually, and sort of went like that's the usual sort of woodwind progression. And I wrote some music in sort of high school for assessments and things, and then in university, um, I went to University of Western Sydney, which is now Western Sydney University. They've changed the name, and I did some compositions there. Really enjoyed it, but it just never occurred to me as a career path, which was, it's interesting, you listen to composers and you play music by composers and composers all around you and all that, but it never sort of occurs to you. And then I think I got to my final year of university, and then one of my lecturers said, "Oh, your composition's doing quite well. Have you thought about honors?" And I was like, well, no, well, I haven't, but I enjoy composition, so why not give it a shot? And I did, and really enjoyed it. That's actually when I wrote Fantasy for Orchestra, and I was working on that, and I loved it. I really, really enjoyed it, but it's actually never been performed.
Mhm.
So that to be part of this competition is really quite
Right.
fantastic. And then I guess post uni, I was in this interesting spot where I sort of really, I found this field I wanted to be in, composition, but it was sort of early days. And I guess since then, how long ago was that? That was 2015, 16. So anyway, since then, it's just been a matter of just writing, trying to find opportunities, performance opportunities. And what's really exciting about composition, I think, like any creative outlet, there are times where it feels like you lose that momentum, and maybe you lose that push. But then when you see, as a composer, when you see your piece performed, it really just reinvigorates you. You just go, yeah, this is why I do it. And working with people, as you sort of were saying before, about sort of that loss of human face-to-face connection, and how that's been a big shock to everyone. I think that's something that I really miss. And of course, there's all those collaborative online things that are happening at the moment, which are great. But yeah, that face-to-face, working with other musicians, getting their input to your work, the performers talking to you, and you talking, it's such a wonderful thing. And you do have this community, which is, yeah, it's fantastic. So I guess at the moment, that's how I sort of got to where I am. I'm still sort of doing that, still making opportunities, and just trying to write.
Yeah. And you mentioned, how there are various organizations who are creating these online things. I think what a lot of people don't know is that these aren't live performances. The things that we see cannot take the place of a live performance, because that technology does not really exist yet.
No.
And these 2 to 5 minute clips that we see of these virtual choirs and orchestras, this is the job of a really talented video and audio editor to splice all of these things together. And I have to reinforce this, but this is like 50 to 100 hours of intensive labor on someone's part, not just the musician's part.
Have you done this, Scott? Sounds like you've been through
only a little bit, but I've more heard the horror stories of my colleagues who are charged with working for larger orchestras and having to do this as part of their jobs. And I can't even imagine.
You're like, no thanks. Stick to the one-on-one interview.
Right. So I can't wait till, and it's great that we do that. And even in doing that, it's also probably an opportunity for composers who can write shorter pieces that might be a cool outlet for something like this to happen. But definitely doesn't. I don't envision any 40-minute to an hour symphonies occurring over.
No, the whole it would get a little old, perhaps, I think, after, and maybe, I'm not sure if it would be even possible, with sort of tempo changes and sort of the sort of textural things you need to deal with. But it's definitely very cool. It's a cool thing. That's something that's very, I think it's exciting that, in a time of hardship, instead of sort of going, oh, I guess we'll sort of wait until this all blows over. We'll try and get together and still make some music. I woke up this morning. It's actually it's 9 a.m. here. So as I say, woke up, it's not the afternoon.
Right.
I woke up this morning to see a video from a small house concert in North London called Willingdon House, and they're 4 musicians who live together, and they've been putting on concerts, I think, every week, or if not every day even. And
oh wow!
And they did a recent call out for composers, and they've just been playing music all around the world, and that's been awesome. And they've been getting lots of viewers and lots of people tuning in, and I think that's really, really nice. So you do see these really nice moments of things opening up. I got a piece being played around the world, just sending that through, and they're it's a great thing.
Right. No, it is great, especially if you have musicians who are already in an enclosed proximity to each other who can do something like that on a single stream. And that's certainly what some orchestras, as they start to open back up, are doing with smaller groups, is just virtual live streaming to an audience. And we got to do what we got to do, certainly.
Mm.
As far as your development as a musician, as a composer, um, what and who have your greatest influences been?
Mm.
Like what styles, and then what people specifically, maybe.
Yeah, sure, sure. Um, yeah, so I guess in university, that lecturer who really encouraged me, Dr. Claire McLean, she was a great, and still is a great mentor to me. Uh, and she's always been willing to help me out, even post university. And we've caught up, and she's always been very encouraging. And if I've sent her a piece for, she said, can you check this? Can you see? Have I done the bowing right? Have I done the all that kind of stuff? Can you check on this? She's always been willing to lend a hand. But I guess in terms of my style as a composer, I'm still working that out, to be honest. But
Mhm.
initially, it's funny. The more you learn a lot about yourself and your style as you keep writing. It can just change in this very organic way. But you look back maybe at a couple pieces earlier, and you've completely sort of changed direction, or you can see how the style sort of coming in as an influence. But I guess early on, I was very influenced by Ravel, Debussy, Sibelius, those types of composers. I think particularly with Fantasy for Orchestra, the piece in Beethoven Idol. Um, I was very I was very influenced by those composers that had these really beautiful, ear-catching melodies and these motifs that they could be introduced to the audience. They were very distinct and recognizable, almost singable.
Mhm.
You know, you could be humming that as you walked out of the concert hall, but then just seeing how that can be explored and transformed throughout a piece. I love the idea of something so, I don't want to say simple, but something so clear and concise that can then develop and build and can become something else entirely while still having that clear idea.
I love that, and you mentioned Sibelius, but he's one of my favorite composers, and
Mm,
definitely spot on, because he doesn't really introduce a melody at first. He definitely
mm,
far away from the early symphonists, but
mm.
he introduces these little germs, these little motives, these little
Yeah.
ideas, and they grow and expand over these even these textural things that begin to grow and then start to overlap each other, and
Mm,
then there's a whole other like realm of tempo and these things that it's just this completely, when they're all interacting together, just wholly organic mixture of things. And I think that's why I love his music so much.
mm.
I mean, very very nature inspired, very, as he puts it, ice cold water, very just simple, and just it's
Yeah.
almost like chaos just happening to come together in that music at that time.
Yeah.
um,
I like
I,
that. Ice cold water. So what's he exactly mean by that? Do you know what he
well, just that, it's there's no muss, no fuss. It's just,
clear?
think of the Fifth Symphony, for example. The Swan theme. It's so simple and
Mm,
so beautiful and unique at the same time.
yeah.
um he's just going up and down a triad most of it.
Yeah.
But it's so brilliantly simple, and just, I mean,
Mm,
like, of course you could say the same of Beethoven in a lot of ways, or
yeah.
the way Haydn can compose a melody. So it's so simple, and
Mm.
it's almost like it couldn't be any other way.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But so clear as well, and just effective and impactful, I think, as well.
Right.
I think that's what you get when you get, and yeah, that's why I'm so cautious using the word simple. I think it can sometimes have negative connotations, but it's definitely not what I mean. It's yes, it's clear and strong, and yes.
um if you had to do so, maybe if you maybe you can't do this, but if you had to describe uh, the body of works that you've composed so far in just a few words, are there a few adjectives that come to mind?
As in the style of works I've created.
Sure.
Hmm. I'm just thinking about the pieces I've written.
And with that, what is your do you prefer writing for orchestra? Is that your favorite?
Hmm. Yeah, so it's funny, all these questions. I'm not sure if I've even asked myself these questions really deep down. I love writing for orchestra. I really enjoy it. I think in terms of, I mean, as a composer, I think you want your pieces performed. Well, at least I do. And I think a lot of composers, you want your music heard. And so I love writing for orchestra, but it's a lot of energy in if you know a piece is going to be played by an orchestra and you're writing for an orchestra, that is so exciting. I had a commission for this. I was writing a piece last year for this year for a symphony orchestra, the Penrith Symphony Orchestra, and that's unfortunately being sort of postponed to next year.
Right.
But when you know when you're writing for a piece for an orchestra that's going to perform your piece, that's exhilarating, and that's the same, I guess, with chamber music. I guess they're very different things, obviously. So you get in a different frame of mind for both of them. Yeah, it's hard to say which is a preference. It's but the first orchestral piece I had performed was you actually conducted it.
Well, there you go.
I don't know if you remember
With the Viridian Symphony, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Viridian Symphony. So that was actually the first orchestral piece I've had performed, and I think when I heard that, I was like, this. I mean, I wasn't there, unfortunately, but when I heard it via on YouTube, that was amazing. That's when I sort of knew, yeah, I could really keep going with the orchestra thing.
All right.
And I guess in terms of describing my body of work so far, I guess I'm not sure if I've got a word there. It's quite difficult to sum it up. I don't know. Do you have any words that come to mind?
No, it's hard. It's really, I was more curious about if you had any like immediate perceptions of your own work. If you leaned a certain way, like I've talked to a few that, oh yeah, I know I'm definitely in the, if I could write all the time in a certain way, I'd definitely be in the Philip Glass, Steve Reich, that sort of thing, or if it was like the post romanticism or something, but if
no, yeah, I think I tend to write I try to go for something catchy, which again, that might sound like a negative word as well, but I try to write these melodies that to me I find are, I guess, beautiful and ear catching, and then the idea of, again, like I said before, sort of building that throughout a piece and changing the context, and that sort of direction. I think that's, yeah, I mean, I just sit at the piano and try and come up with these ideas, and I think I'm led very harmonically. I often start with chords and things, and then, because I'm not much of a piano player, but that's what I do most of my writing. Yeah, well, I'm actually sort of sitting at my sort of keyboard here, where I do most of my writing, but yes, I'm definitely not a strong classical player at all, but that's sort of where I sit there and sort of piece it all together. Yeah.
So do most of your compositions sort of stem from just sitting at the keyboard playing with different ideas, or how does that work for you?
Yeah, I guess it's funny. I was actually thinking about this the other day, and this always happens. I'll be working on a piece that a commission or something I might have due coming up, or a competition I want to submit for, or whatever it is, and I'll be working on that piece, but I'll just, after maybe that initial spark of inspiration is hit for that piece, and I'm just kind of working on it and maybe doing some arranging, and I will start getting ideas for another piece, and it won't be conscious. I'll just like start playing around on the piano, and then I'll like get this idea for a nice progression, or these nice voicings, or just some sort of idea for a new work. So then I'll have to go, okay, I've got to write this down, and then so I'll move on to that next piece. So it's funny, for a few of my last couple of pieces, I've ended up writing the next piece I was working on before I even got there, which is nice, because then when I finished the piece I was meant to be working on, and then I've already kind of started the next piece. But sometimes you're out walking and you get, I don't get sort of melodies and things come to me, but you get ideas. You sort of think about instrument combinations and maybe an idea for a tempo or a rhythm or something, or you're sort of just you just get inspired by, as nature and just being outside.
And it's certainly not like Beethoven or Brahms or Mahler never composed more than one piece at the same time.
Oh, yeah, they're very, very, very focused. I think I'm just very easily distracted. I think if you ask any of my friends, yeah, it's hard for me to focus. Yeah, so.
Well, as we sort of wrap up today, maybe you could tell us a little bit more about the Fantasy for Orchestra. Any particular thoughts about it, or maybe if you can describe a little bit more the compositional process that you went through with this piece.
Yeah, sure. Well, as I said before, it was my piece that I wrote my honors year, and in doing so, it was I was trying to write a piece, an orchestral piece. Obviously, and trying to see if I could do it. I wasn't sure if I was even capable at that point. I'd never written anything like that. I'd written smaller works, and I think it sort of comes back to that fragment approach with the motifs and building it. And I think that's how I sort of I did it. I came up with these melodies that throughout the piece they build and change, and maybe they'll disappear for a section. So for instance, there's sort of I like to think of the piece in 3 sections. So there's this A section, then the B, then kind of sort of returns back to the A, but it's quite different, but it's recurring melodic material. But so there's a opening solo oboe theme, which is unaccompanied, and I really like that because it's really exposed. I always think I think I was really influenced by the opening of Prelude to the Afternoon of a Faun by Debussy, where it's just that opening flute line, and it's so vulnerable, so exposed, but so haunting at the same time. So I've got this solo oboe figure, and that comes back later, but that changes and is so in terms of compositional approach, I think those fragments, building them up, developing them throughout. Yeah.
Are there a lot of tangents for you with this piece and the idea of structure that the Debussy Prelude provides?
I wasn't so much following that as a guide, the Debussy work, but was definitely very inspired by it, and how each time that dreamy chromatic figure came back, it was in this different sound world. So at the start it's unaccompanied, and then it returns later with this lush accompaniment, different harmonic accompaniment as well, and then different treatment as well. It's extended, it's shortened. I just love that idea of, you take this small little cell and you can stretch it, and you can bring it back in, you can put it other places, you can echo it across the orchestra. I think I think if you get too many ideas going, you can sometimes lose the core of what you're going for, and you might in a sense lose the audience along the way. But if you throw too many melodies at them, it's which one are we going with, and it's so yes, yeah. So
there is that certain built-in sense of simplicity and just focus as we go through, say, this piece, which is nice, because people have short attention spans.
Yeah, especially in the age of sort of YouTube videos and watching those 2-minute videos, 3-minute videos, or 30 seconds.
Exactly. Well, Wesley, we certainly look forward to hearing your piece, and thank you again for taking the time to chat with us a little bit about your background and the compositional process that you go through with pieces like the Fantasy for Orchestra. And we hope that we get to learn more about you in the coming months.
Yeah, sounds great, Scott. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thank you.